Hi, my name is Mike Feldstein, CEO of Jaspr, and you're listening to EA Interviews.
EA Interviews, episode 517.
Inspiration, transformation, success stories, and the Imperfect Action Round. 7 days a week. Join Mario Ficini for today's Expert Authority Effect interview.
Expert Authority World. We're talking about business, we're talking about publishing, books, and all these good things, but what good is any of this if we don't have high-quality premium air? I am excited to have the founder and CEO of Jaspr, Mike Feldstein, on today's episode because he has a background of wildfire restoration and air quality, and he's on a mission to make the world we live in a healthier, more breathable place. I'm going to bring him up right after we thank our sponsor. Every business needs a book, including yours. And that's why I'm launching my new book to help you regardless of where you think your current writing abilities are. Visit eapublishingmethodbook.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit-generating business book in 8 weeks. Once again, that's eapublishingmethodbook.com. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Feldstein. Mike, how are you feeling today?
Feeling good, feeling hydrated. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I got to ask about your background. I thought it was cool, wildfire restoration, and you're on this mission to purify the air and the world we leave a lasting legacy. Where did all of this stem from? Because I know you're a successful CEO and founder, but most people seem to focus on profits and, you know, how do we grow the company in this? And you're not only focused on that, you're looking like, how do we preserve this for decades to come? Where did this initially come from?
Well, we can't have profits without air.
This is true.
So I have a little Maslow's hierarchy of air, and generally I always thought that should have been at the bottom because we can't have business, we can't have really anything if we don't have air to breathe. This started for me, the big aha air moment that got me down this path was being in wildfire restoration. So when there'd be a big fire in California or Oregon or British Columbia, we would go out there and clean and restore smoke-damaged homes to make them habitable for people to move back into their homes that have been ravaged by toxic smoke. And I got to see firsthand how sick people got after wildfires and how the air cleaners that we would use after a flood or a fire or a big natural disaster, they would be like these large photocopier, subwoofer, industrial-looking machines. And then when you look at the general Best Buy, Home Depot consumer air purifier space, they're these little tiny cute things. And after using very effective machines and testing the air quality before, during, and after going from toxic air to very safe, clean air, I then got to compare that to the consumer products that were in the market because it's not just when there's a huge fire. Anytime there's smoke in a community, everybody gets sick. Autoimmune, respiratory stuff, asthma, allergies, just like any other stressor, people get very sick. And when you're looking at the doctors and the naturopaths and the clinics, just everything is just off the charts. So I'm like, whoa, how come people on the West Coast, when there's wildfire smoke, aren't filtering the air adequately? We've learned as a society not to go to a pond, fill up a glass of water in the pool or the pond and drink it because it looks clear, but we breathe toxic air all the time and we're none the wiser. So I got lucky through these experiences to see how harmful and how toxic air could be and how ineffective the solutions were to purify it. So coming from that background of disaster response, I want to focus all of the stuff I used to do was reactive. We'd wait for the fire to ravage
Right.
community, then we would support. And I'm like, whoa, it's not just the big fires, but it's the allergens, it's the pollution, it's the smog. Like, air is getting worse, and our desire and our ability and our awareness to clean the air is not moving at the pace that air is getting worse. So when I just saw how ineffective these little solutions were, like, the best analogy I could give is we were using pickup trucks and tractor trailers, and people were trying to use golf carts to pretend they did the same thing. And I'm like, we're not going to all drive tractor trailers and pickup trucks, but like, where's the luxury SUV that could take the kids, take the stuff, be safe and look good while doing it? And that was kind of the realization that you either had loud, ugly, expensive, or
Small and
inexpensive,
ineffective.
small, ineffective. Yeah. So it was an obvious let's figure this out
So you
situation.
created a happy medium, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the pollutants in the home because I know you're saying we get ravaged with the toxins and all this stuff outside, but how much is the inside air contributing to the bad inside air also, not just mixing with the outside?
So I'm going to keep this with me for curiosity. Today, actually, I have my CO2 sensor with me because
Okay.
I'm in a little bit of a soundproof podcasting studio room, and it'll be fun. As this changes throughout the episode, I'll bring it up. So 902 is reasonably high. Outside is 400. When you're like, I want to go outside and get fresh air,
It's
that's
400.
our human way of explaining it. But what we're really saying is I want to go to a place where the air composition is higher oxygen and lower CO2. It's
Cleaner.
stuffy. We call it, no, it doesn't have to be cleaner, just more fresh air available. Um,
Oh,
so as I'm in this room, if the ventilation system is really good, it will detect the increase of CO2 as I'm breathing out, and it will start venting. Most rooms don't. So I'm expecting it to get stuffy and uncomfortable here, and this number to rise over 1,000. So I'll just keep this around here because, like, what as it gets over 1,000, the brain fog and the fatigue starts to set in, which would tell me open the door, get some fresh air.
that is fascinating. Where do we get something like that?
This particular company is called Aeronet 4. I just like this one because of its portability.
Okay.
The battery lasts 4 years. It doesn't detect anything but CO2. So Jasper cleans the air. This does not tell me about the dirtiness of the air. It
Oh,
just tells me about the carbon dioxide in the air, which is created by
breathing.
humans or breathing. Yeah,
Okay, this is fascinating as all get out. There's about five different paths I want to take this. So, are
I
there
can start.
ones? What's that?
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll get back to your other
So, are
question
there
after.
ones that do show the oxygen levels? You said that's strictly CO2. Are there any that show the composition depending where you're going?
So they're less portable typically because they need more battery power.
Mm-hmm.
This screen is like a Kindle, and it's not up. It's like that paper material, so it's super low battery.
Okay.
Most of them would need to be plugged in, and they'll detect things like temperature, relative humidity, which this does, but they'll also detect particles and VOCs, which are like gases and chemicals in the air, volatile organic compounds.
Compounds, yeah.
So there's a company called Aware, AWAIR. There's another company called Air Things, but in the air sensing, air monitoring space, there are different gadgets for that kind of stuff. But
That's
CO2
fascinating.
is the one I like to keep my eye on because it's the
So,
easiest to do something about.
I was speaking recently and in a different state in front of a bunch of people, and I took a plane and had a hotel when I got there. How clean is airplane air in hotel rooms generally?
Uh, Airplanes are extremely clean, but the CO2 levels are very high. So there's not very fresh air. So the oxygen percentage is not great, but the filtration system is great. So there's
Okay.
not like in terms of like viruses, bacteria, mold, pollen, dust mites, smoke. Not super concerned about that. The air is usually very clean on a plane, but there's a lot of air breathers on there, and there's not a lot of fresh air coming on board. So this typically sits at about 1,300, 1,400.
Wow.
So like, oh, speaking of which, this we're now already up to 1,300. Speaking of the devil,
Wow.
and I'll try to keep this far away where it's not biased by me breathing on it. But yeah,
And you
1,300
definitely don't want to
is
open
getting
a
up
window
there.
for fresh air on the plane.
No, you cannot.
So those are 13, 1400. How long does it take for the brain fog to set in when you're at 9, 1,000, 1,100, 12? Like, is there a thing where at 1,000 it takes 20 minutes and then at 1,200 it only takes 9 or 12? Kind of like the sunburn thing. Like, if it's this bright in the sun and, it'll take this long to burn if you're doing this with the SPFs. Like, do you have a breakdown of because people say
Not
that all the
a
time. I feel
perfect
foggy,
amount.
this and that, and it's really is you just need better composition of air, fresh air.
I like to call air either sleep fuel or thinking fuel. Like when you're hungry, you go get food. When you're thirsty, you go get water. Air is so core to our existence that we don't even have to think about it. And in fact, when we do think about it, it's very stressful. It's all you can think about. It's the first thing you do when you're born. It's the last thing you do when you die. It's the only thing that keeps you alive when you sleep. It's so important that you could do it with a coma. You could be unconscious and your body still breathes for you. It's pretty amazing, really, how we could tolerate poor air. And there was this little YouTube video I saw not long ago. There's three goldfish in a bowl, and the older goldfish swims by these two little baby goldfish, and he goes, "How's the water, boys?" And then they look at him and say, "What's water?" And if you
Mm,
think about it, like till very recently, science and education, probably very recently, to actually describe what air is, like it's not us and air. We live in air. What water is to fish, air is to people. It's in us and it's outside of us. We're just immersed in it. And as far as we know in the entire universe, it only exists between the sea and the sky. So if you go to like the core of the earth to the edge of the atmosphere, there's this teeny tiny layer with air where we can survive. And it's quite fragile. Um, Meanwhile, we don't really pay much attention to it because we just live in it. So I think we really take it for granted. And I think like instead of being like carbon and climate change and all these abstract things, more natural disasters, well, we all know what fresh air feels like outside. If there's
hmm.
more carbon in the atmosphere, that outdoor 400 is going to keep going up. So that stuffy feeling that you have if you lock yourself in a classroom with 30 people or in a seminar or an office building, imagine that was outside. There was nowhere to go for fresh air anymore. I think that is a much more visceral, relatable metric. Like, forget what the temperature is outside. What's the CO2 and how is it trending? Because it's
Yeah.
400 now. They say a couple hundred years ago it was in the 200s. I could only imagine how fresh that breath would have been.
Yeah, I remember I live near water, and I would like to think it's fresher than like the inner city or just driving down the road or somewhere. But I remember there were some wildfires or something across by Canada, and all the smoke just kept pouring and pouring over. And our air index, it was basically don't go outside. I mean, it was
And
like,
when you see that, let's say good, clean, healthy air from a air index PM 2.5 standpoint is about 5 to 10. That's a good number. 15 is okay. As we're getting above that, it's not great. In Beijing, it's about 50. 50 is good because the outside air is just more polluted. When you see wildfire smoke, and like it's really smoky outside, you can't see. It could be 200, 250, 300. Inside is still usually 150. Just relative to outside, it seems better. But your house doesn't have this air force field around it. The same amount of when they say stay inside, the air is not actually much better inside. Where do you think the indoor air comes from?
right.
There's very little
Same
to
thing
no
with your like
filtration
your
indoors.
vehicle. If you get in there when it's super cold and you have hot air after driving 3 hours or cold air in the summer, you got to suck in that air. Otherwise, it's just whatever's in the cabin you're recirculating.
Exactly. So to answer your question about the CO2 thing, it depends on a number of things, including how fast you're breathing. If you're breathing through your nose and you're relatively calm, you're going to be able to breathe a lot slower and you're going to be able to,
And the
survive, be more
oxygenation in your
comfortable.
blood's going to be a higher concentration from nose breathing to just going.
Yeah, so if you're taking in more of it, you're just pumping in more CO2 at a higher rate. Um, and also, so it depends on your kind of your output, your exertion, how hard you're working, that kind of thing. If it's hotter, if it's more polluted, there's more factors, but it's quite immediate. Like if you go into a very small space with a bunch of people, like an elevator, and you're stuck in an elevator, very quickly you're going to be really uncomfortable. So, by the way, we're down to a 984, which is very surprising, actually.
For the size
Um,
of the space.
yeah, it's a very nice office. So I think that their ventilation system is decent. It's only me in this room. It probably had that spike before because it was close to me and it was actually getting like the direct airstream of the
Okay.
breath. Like if I put that close and I breathe on it for too long, it will spike off the charts.
So it's not
Um,
necessarily that it's dirty air, it's just a higher CO2 concentration.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's correlated to less game theory optimal chess moves, poker moves, SAT scores. So our brain to perform needs thinking fuel, needs oxygen, and ideally not too much CO2 because otherwise we have bad air and less good air. So really like though, we could tell. Like if you just listen to your body and you
Hmm.
know it's stuffy, that just means the carbon dioxide is way too high. Typically in a good home, it's going to be like 600 to 700, so higher than outside, but under 1,000. But if I had a CO2 detector at my parents' house, it's about a 3,500 square foot house. There was about 50 people over for dinner, and they
It
got
got
into
up
the
there.
3,500 range,
Wow.
and it can stay high for a few days. So whenever you have a lot of people over, if you can't crack windows and doors because it's cold, like when everybody leaves, like do a purge, open that house up, let it breathe for a little bit, bring the outside in, and let the inside get out.
This has always fascinated me because it's like 30 degrees here in Detroit right now, and I don't even care if it's cold. Like, I'd rather have fresh air and not feel like crap than, oh, it's a little bit chilly. Like, put on a blanket, turn on the fireplace, whatever. If someone doesn't want to do that, so the air filter will filter this. Does it remove the CO2 in the filtration? It's removing the particles, right? Bacteria and viruses.
Particles and some gases and odors and things like that.
Sure.
There are some, you know, the carbon could maybe help a little bit. It helps with carbon monoxide as well, a little bit. But generally, no, there's no, it's not like the air purifier makes air. Like we need fresh air.
Right.
That comes from outside.
So, two questions. One, why don't furnaces like how has no one designed something better to like inject air without cranking all the windows and everything? Because
They
it seems
have
like they have.
They have. It's called an ERV or an HRV, which is either called a heat recovery ventilator or an energy recovery ventilator.
Oh,
And this all sort of started in the 70s. The energy efficiency movement is at odds with the environmental healthiness movement because we built our homes like Tupperware boxes where we trap everything inside. So the desire to seal up the house is great. Keep the warm in the winter, keep the cool in the
it's
summer,
also keeping
but
all the crap in too.
we're keeping the outdoor pollutions in and we're keeping the indoor pollutions in. So ERVs and HRVs, what they do, the optimal setup, if you have a house that you were building from scratch, would be a very airtight home. This is fine. Tight windows, good insulation, good seal. But then you'd have like an ERV or an HRV that would act like a straw. So it would be the point of least resistance, and that's where the air would enter the home. And because the way it works is the indoor air kind of heats up this core. So when it's exchanging the air, it does it in a pretty energy efficient manner. It's almost very rare in North America, very popular in Asia, that the fresh air intake, the ERV, would also have a filter on it. This is like the optimal setup because when the halogens are being pulled in your house or the smoke or the pollution, it has a single point of intake. So the air in most homes is coming through windows, doors, vents. It's just a little bit of everywhere. When you have a fan bringing the air in, almost all the air comes in through that one channel. And then if you have a filter there, you could actually filter the air on intake and filter it on recirculation. It's not as effective if you retrofit it into an existing home, but there are a lot of states and provinces in Canada and very common in Europe where it's in the building code. So new homes are built this way.
Wow, this is fascinating. So I was just going to ask you, how easy is it to add an ERV or HRV to an existing home or
The
business?
smaller the home, the better. You know, if it's like an industrial design where there's like mechanical is quite exposed, easy. But otherwise, you've got like in the most optimal setup, a house doesn't need bathroom fans. If you have an ERV or an HRV, it acts as the fan system for everywhere. So you wouldn't actually need
Interesting.
those at all. But the best way to do it, and the most efficient, effective way is in a new construction. When you're only talking about, you know, like a $5,000 investment to have this all dialed in. If it's retrofit, you could do it for the same 5,000. Maybe it's like half as effective, or like 15,000 because you're cutting open some drywall and like if someone's doing
Okay.
like a major renovation or a
So
major
you
gut
can
job,
do it. It's just going to be
you
more
could do it.
difficult to place it and get everything the way it needs. Or if you,
Yeah,
another thing is, like you're saying, it comes through most window areas and doors. If you have to seal up 13 doors or windows better because they're leaking.
you wouldn't have to because you'd have a vet like a like an intake, and that's the path. Air is going to follow the path of least resistance,
Sure.
and your home's going to maintain a certain amount of pressure. So by having the ERV, much less air is gonna come through the windows and doors. It's gonna come through that channel that you bring it in. It's just less optimal. The most optimal would be like a really well sealed home with a clear intake and a clear exhaust. But no matter what, if you have that intake, it will be the majority of the air that enters your home will come through that channel.
Yeah. I've always thought about the crawl space, the way the furnace is set up over it, and there's all this air underneath and everything. And I was like, just always thought there could be a better way to do it, so to speak. And you basically just described it. So thank you for that. What are your thoughts on ozonators? I remember in high school, my friend Kyle had this machine that like apparently created ozone and put it in the house and made it smell like a hotel.
There might have been something else in there as well because ozone is something we use a lot in wildfire and flood restoration and mold removal. It's very effective at removing odors.
Okay.
However,
You don't
ozone,
want to
for
oversaturate
example,
it?
yeah, so when we would use it on jobs, we would have to have a dissipation period. So we'd run the ozone machine, and then there'd be like 12 hours or 24 hours where we couldn't be in the home after. We would have to get all plants and pets out of the house, including fish, because we could kill everything. Um, but if you adhere to like if somebody pukes in a car, ozone's going to be wonderful at odor removal. It's really effective for that. But it also can create chemical reactions. So ozone can break down rubber and create formaldehyde. Ozone itself can be damaging to your lungs. So I would never create an air purifier or run an ozone machine in my house all the time. But like if I'm a hotel and somebody smoked in the room and I needed to do like some odor removal, so I run the ozone machine and then I let the room breathe. That's great, but it's not something that you want. UV
20.
lights can
It's not
also
a
create ozone.
24/7 deal. It's a case by case.
Yeah. Use it for like a deep clean or a spot clean of an odor or something like that. But it's not something you want, which UV lights and air purifiers create ozone. So I'm not a really big fan of UV either for air. I love it for surfaces. I love it for water. I don't love it for air. Because
Uh,
you solve one problem and you create a new problem.
Yeah, I was
That's
going to
not a
say when you're
solution.
like, yeah, we can't be in the home for 24 hours and it'll kill everything. Like, okay, but the smell's gone. Um, not,
Every time I've gone to a disaster zone, I remember like there was a company called Service Master, big janitorial company. So there'd be a fire, they'd hire hundreds of guys. I remember a bunch of these kids in Alberta in 2016 all went to the hospital because they didn't get great training. They just got machines, turned them on, and basically overdosed on ozone, whatever you call that, and ended up in the hospital
no, it's
because they just
unfortunate.
blasted. Like when you could smell it, and it smells like that electrostatic cleaner. It doesn't smell like something you want to be around. You want to
Now,
get away from that.
now I've heard, because I've always been fascinated with this, and it's one reason I wanted to feature you on the show because I think more people need to know about it. I mean, I'm going back a while just playing around with things like I said, the crawl space and different things, even in grade school, high school, college, all those years ago. But what's your take on the water? Because I've heard different things like when you're near a waterfall, it's like a natural ozone creator, but it also keeps it in balance and different things like that.
So what's the question exactly?
What's your take on like natural waterfalls or creating waterfalls in the home with those waterfall things or those standing up ones? Do those help purify the air also because they're naturally creating more ozone and they're purifying it?
I honestly don't know anything about that.
Okay.
I'm very interested in that because I think running water and filtered water and moving water and spring water, fresh water is awesome. But like it seems like it could make sense. I could see that the charge of a waterfall could be very purifying. Um, just like rain can be quite purifying. It can, settle everything. Often after a big rainstorm, the air does feel quite fresh. But I don't have any experience with that, but I'll look into that because I'm curious to learn
Okay.
more myself.
Yeah, the salon I go to for my hair, they have one right when you leave too. So you have that little lobby area before you get in the main area, and every time you're walking in and out, it does smell fresher.
Huh.
I don't
Yeah,
know enough about it
there's
either. That's
definitely a
why I was
freshness to
asking.
waterfalls. There's definitely a freshness there. I will
I mean,
test
if nothing
water.
else, they're soothing.
Yeah, great for the noise. Nice source of white noise. But I bet you there's something to it because the best air purifier in the world is nature. And the only reason our indoor air is bad is because we left that shit outside. So uh, theoretically, we should not need air purifiers. We should just be outside more. But we invented inside in the last couple hundred years.
Yeah.
We spend most of our time in these little Tupperware saran wrapped homes. So I bet you there's something to it. I will
With the
test
blinds
air.
shut now, like heaven forbid even light comes in.
Yeah, we really have, especially kids who grew up in the cities. They're like, I hate nature. What does that even mean? You don't like
um,
trees and water and light? I don't
let
understand.
me ask you about your meter there. What's it at now?
974.
Okay, so it's under a
We're,
thousand. So that's
yeah,
I
we're
be,
sitting pretty.
better for a sound booth than inside. But you were saying outside air is now around 400. Most homes are 6 to 7. Where would you need to go to get it below sub 100 or between 1 and 2?
The only time I've ever seen it sub 400 was in the rainforest, like Vancouver Island, like massive, old, majestic 700-year-old trees, the wet
Really?
forest. And I've seen like 375, 380 in the forest. I've never seen lower than that.
So most
I
outs
guess
even
if
outside
you
air is going to be
created
4 or 500.
it's here's the crazy thing. It's typically 400.00 to a T exactly.
Really?
Yeah, it's always blown my mind. Like it's one of those like with Celsius, how is zero freezing and 100's boiling? Like what? How did that work out? So perfectly. Like some physics math stuff that is beyond my pay grade. But either we built the system around it or it's just some really an incredible system. But yeah, when I measure the CO2 outside, it's typically 400.00 exactly. You'll like CO2 indoors is very fluid. CO2 outside is like flat. It doesn't change. So I don't
Wow.
know.
So do you think it ever was 1, 2, or 300?
I mean, they say that it was, and I believe them because if there was way more trees and way less carbon being put into the
Yeah, it makes
air,
sense.
but like, how's it stuck at exactly 400 right now? I don't know.
Okay. That's intriguing as all get out. Because my this all spurled from me going, well, how do we get our homes to 1 or 200
Maybe it would be like
or less?
an oxygen machine potentially to like if we were pumping oxygen in the room, bottling oxygen and pumping that into a small space. I suppose that would do it, but
Correct me
I
if
don't
I'm wrong,
know.
but wouldn't we need to have some like real precise math of like run it for 12 minutes per 3 hours and then shut it off and know the dissipation or half life is? I mean, I know you can't run it 24/7, but I'm sure there's some
Run what
ebbs and flows that
the
could be
oxygen machine?
calculated.
Run the oxygen machine?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never experimented with this. The closest thing I have experimented with is when I was hiking in Peru. When you got to the hotel in Cusco, you acclimate for a few days before you start the trek. And in a lot of the hotel rooms, they had oxygen machines because of the high altitude and the lower concentration of
Right.
oxygen. A lot of people would feel sick. So they had additive oxygen in the room to help people acclimatize. Or if people got altitude sickness, they could pump oxygen into your hotel room. So there's obviously some way to do it, but
Wow.
it's not the my particular area of expertise.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I'm
So,
more in the cleaning air game at this present moment is my career art.
so let's talk about that because we've gone into pretty good detail about the ozone side of it, and obviously the CO2 levels, the better, obviously good. But let's talk about the bacteria and the particles and removing all of that. What are you finding across the board most homes have in them, and where should it be?
Most homes have horrible air. They say indoor air is 5 times. I've heard anywhere between 5 and 100 for indoor air being dirtier than outside air. And I found that to be true. So you have everything from, so let's just look at outdoor pollution and indoor pollution because they both affect the inside. Outdoor pollution would be pollen, mold, cedar, dander, mites, all the hay fever and all of the allergens, we'll call it the allergen bucket. Pollution, smog, cars, your neighbor's contractor cutting floorboards
Mm-hmm.
for their renovation. Like I have crazy air sensors in my house. If I open the door, if my barbecue is about 50, 60 feet from the back door, just going in and out, my air quality spikes. If the neighbor's doing a renovation across the street, it will likely spike. Think about it. A fire could happen 3,000 miles away and it will spike. So a neighbor doing a renovation across the street. So outside you got like the pollution, the allergens. Those are the big ones. Yeah, cars, factories, the neighbor cooking, the neighbor using those lint things in their dryer that's blowing outside, the dishwasher, your neighbor's chemicals. It's all a shared environment. And then inside, you have off gassing from furnitures, paints, things like that. You have cooking. You have
Mm-hmm.
pets, dogs and cats, cat litter, kibble, um, personal care items, hairsprays, shampoos, conditioners, cleaning products, window cleaning, surface cleaning, all these chemicals that we use, soaps. Cooking is the biggest one. Cleaning is probably the second biggest one because cooking, insect parts are huge, indoor mold. There's usually more pollen inside the house than outside because everything from outside comes inside and then it gets trapped in your HVAC, your carpet, your couch, your furniture, anything porous, especially carpets. It just gets absorbed into that and then it can't get out.
What
And then
about
you
steam
walk
cleaning
on
the
it.
carpet? Does that help remove it?
Helps a lot. Yeah, a lot.
Oh,
If you can like vacuum and steam clean a carpet, that's super effective.
that's
That
good
helps
news.
a ton. That helps a ton. Most people don't do that very often. Cooking is crazy because you're literally making a little hot fire inside. So you're aerosolizing everything, the chemicals on the nonstick pan, the proteins from the food you're cooking. So like if somebody has a Jaspers in their house, even in a 4,000 square foot house, in every corner of the house when you're cooking, you're going to go from that 5 to 10 up to that 100, 200 level. And not just bacon and smoky foods. Asparagus with olive oil is going to spike off the chart because you're heating up the food. So you're just like if you have
Asparagus is
uh,
good.
asparagus is great. It's great, but like open a window or have air purifiers. Cooking inside is it's very hazardous for your air. I want to eat my asparagus. I don't necessarily want to breathe it in high concentrations. Not to mention it's that high heat. It's like if you think about the barbecue getting all dirty and gunked up,
Right.
your pans get dirty. When you're cooking meats and fats at high temperature, chemicals get created like PAH. It's called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. That's very cancer causing. We find that in homes after wildfires. Same thing we find when you cook. You got the carbon monoxide from the stove. So generally, we have these little tight boxes. We pollute in them like crazy. We filter our water. We clean our counter. But if you want a clean, hygienic home, you need to be cleaning your surfaces and cleaning your air. And if you're doing a good job cleaning your air, your surfaces stay very clean. You'll never see dust in your home. But generally, it's almost
Oh,
like what isn't polluting your air in your home.
yeah. It sounds like everything and us, like we talked about. There we go. More CO2.
Yeah.
I, I,
The thing
I,
is,
I feel like I should walk
luckily,
away for a minute and open some windows right now because to the point of my studio too, when I'm doing episodes back to back to back, by the end, absolutely, it's like, you know, I,
sometimes a bathroom fan, a range hood, just a little bit of ventilation often goes a long way.
how do we keep it quiet though when we're live streaming?
More either a cracked window would be good. It depends how loud your ambient audio is outside. If not, there's some larger bathroom fans that can operate quite
Yeah,
quietly.
I know the
Some range
bigger
hoods
the
on fan
diameter,
speed
it's going to be
one.
sucking in more airflow volume without having to spin super high speed.
It's like your car being on sixth gear on the highway versus first gear when you're just revving it up.
Yeah,
It's a lot more quiet. It's a lot more efficient because of the larger gears. Fans are the exact same concept. The bigger the fan, the more air you're moving per rotation.
yeah. This is fascinating. I wish we had more time to go into even more detail with it, but I have a fun question for you.
Sure.
The
Hopefully, I have a fun answer.
wheel of whatever. We got yellow and black here. What do you want?
Black.
Yeah. All right. If you weren't doing this, what was your other option and passion to dive into?
Like what is it right now, or what was it then?
What was it then?
It wasn't. It was traveling and making better, smarter friends. I spent 3 years between my wildfire restoration career and launching this business. I needed a pause on business and a pause on life to go upgrade the quality of my relationships, my friends, and my network and travel to like 30, 40 countries before
Wow.
I was ready to do anything. If I was gonna do stuff now, I'm pretty committed to the airspace at large, but I would be building healthy homes from scratch. So custom homes that are built with air filtration, water filtration, low EMF, optimal red lighting, like biohacked homes would be what I'd be doing right
That'd be
now.
sweet. Geothermal.
Well, yes, in-floor heating, ERVs, the whole thing.
Uh,
But then that's kind of the vision for Jasper, honestly. The goal was create the world's best air purifier that's beautiful, smart, and effective. Once we do that, we'll start to move more towards entire HVAC systems and then eventually homes. So the whole goal right now is create the best air purification system. So if someone lives in an area with if they have pets, pollution, cooking, and they can't move to Vancouver Island and move to the rainforest, they can at least get something that they can plug and play and make their air quality great while looking good and being silent. It's like let's just do that one thing as good as we possibly can, and then let's move into HVAC, and then let's move into homes. So we're very, very, that's kind of our roadmap anyway. So I still intend to move in that direction. It's just let's make sure we can do one thing excellent before we move on to new things.
100%. I agree wholeheartedly. I think there's too many people that they want to take on the whole world, and it's like you never got to the depth of product or service A before B and C. Build the bridge first.
And for your listeners, I'll create a code. We're a very unsalesy company. Sales is not something we do. We don't have Facebook ads and Google ads or anything like that. We have something called the life-changing guarantee. So if somebody buys a Jasper and within the first 60 days, it's not noticeably changing their life, if they're not sleeping better, feeling better, we give them a prepaid shipping label and 100% refund and we take it back.
Wow.
So I'll create a little code. I'll call it Expert Authority, 2 words, and that'll be 10% off. So if any of your listeners hear it and they're interested in trying to have cleaner air in their bedroom or their home, the code will be 2 words, Expert Authority, and we'll have a disc. We don't have any discounts on our website. We don't discount ever as a brand, but when we work with, we want to get the word out. We want to make
For
clean
sure.
air accessible. So Expert Authority, all one word, all uppercase. That'll give people 10% off. And if it doesn't make a difference, we'll give them all their money back. We just want to make clean air accessible for everybody.
Well, we do appreciate that. I'll make sure the team gets that for the show notes on eainterviews.com. We're going to thank the sponsor and come back for the imperfect action round. You've heard me say every business needs a book, including yours. And it's true. And that's why I'm launching my new book at eapublishingmethodbook.com so you can learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit-generating business book in 8 weeks. But you know what? Don't take my word for it. Take it from a few of my authors, like Lori.
And I went from having an idea and a possibility to actually getting my book published.
Or Catherine.
Thank you for making my mom #1 best-selling author.
Or Mary Alice.
What he got done for me in 3 days regarding my book launch, unmanageable.
John Cody.
I've worked with Mario over the phone and online, and he's been very helpful in getting me where I needed to go with promoting my books.
Rocio.
There's no way in the world I would have been able to do this with somebody else. I've attempted it in the past. It didn't serve me. As a matter of fact, I ended up more frustrated than anything. So this has been a very seamless process.
Adele.
If you're looking for an amazing business coach, I highly recommend Mario Ficini.
Or Bill Benner.
I can't make a higher recommendation than to work with Mario Ficini. He has been great for me, and right now I won't work with anybody else except for Mario.
Hey, their words, not mine. Visit eapublishingmethodbook.com to get your copy, and I look forward to hearing your transformation as our next video success story. Once again, that's eapublishingmethodbook.com. And we are back with the imperfect action round. Mike, are you ready to take imperfect action?
I'm ready.
All right, I got 3 questions for you, rapid fire answers. The first one is, what's the fastest path to the cash?
Fastest path to the cash?
Yes.
Meaning, if somebody has no money now and they want to make some money quickly, how should they do it?
Yes.
So I would say Sell water in the desert is basically my philosophy for making money. Go to where people need the thing right now. So if it's floods during floods, if it's roofing during hailstorms, if it's the branches fall down because there's an ice storm, remove that. Just do a service business that is in the highest need right now.
Love it. Love the analogies too. Second one, what is the biggest problem you see your prospects making and the fastest way for them to fix it?
What kind of prospect?
For someone getting your air purifiers.
The biggest mistake people find is buying something that is cheap and small and ineffective. Sometimes it is very, very expensive to be cheap.
It's not the
And
greatest value just because it's the best price.
No, it's like if you were going back to the vehicle analogy, you can't get a cheap sedan if you got a family of 5 or 6. It just won't do the job. Most little air purifiers are designed to clean the air in your closet, not your bedroom, not your house. So when it's something as fundamental as safety, air, water, this is not the place to try to save $400 or $500. So people going cheap on the things that matter most.
I agree. Number 3, what's the best way to maximize lifetime value?
For our business?
Yes.
Treat people like you want to be treated. So we have a lifetime warranty. So for example, if the Jaspr breaks on year 7, we courier a replacement the next day. They take the new one out, they put the old one in, prepaid shipping label, and we schedule UPS to pick it up in the morning. And that is my way of everybody. If you build the company that you would want to be a customer of, because if you treat people awesomely and you innovate and you have the best, people aren't looking to replace you. So, and it's a lot cheaper to get it. It's a lot cheaper to keep your customers than get new ones. So just treat everybody awesomely and trust your customers. I hate when somebody has a warranty and I go to do a warranty claim and they want my box and my receipt and videos and photos and troubleshooting calls. Do you think I'm lying to you? So trust your customers when they tell you that they're having a problem.
Yeah, and that now you're just making it more inconvenient for them and more work for your team anyhow.
Now you need 20 customer service reps that are politely denying people instead of having 2 that are politely helping people.
Wow. You've shared so much good stuff, and I appreciate the kind offer for our listeners specifically, but where would you like to say it again, and where would you like to send people?
Yeah, Jaspr.co is our website, .co, no M. Instagram is Jaspr, Jaspr, no E, Jaspr Co. We're not super big on social media. I do love doing podcasts, but our website will keep getting better and better. So that code, again, is Expert Authority, all one word, and it's 10% off. And as people buy more units, their discounts get even better. And the 10% sits on top of that. So we don't compete with that. We just add to that. So yeah, Expert Authority, all one word. And it's 100% refund if it's not good. And you don't even need to keep the box. We will replace it.
Well, thank you again for that. As a publisher, I have to ask you, what books have helped you in business the most?
Sure. I really liked Extreme Ownership by Jocko. I really liked the Tao of Charlie Munger. I really liked How to Get Rich by Felix Dennis, even though it has a silly title. And Keith Cunningham's book, The Road Less Stupid.
Oh, that's good. Well, thank you for those and everything you've shared. It's been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure. Have a great day, and I look forward to when we speak again, maybe in the flesh.
That would be great. All right, Expert Authority World, we have another great episode here today. I'll see you on the next one. Have a great day, and God bless. You're already the expert, but have you transformed your expertise into a tangible asset that will generate qualified leads while increasing profit for you 24/7? And if so, how well are you promoting it? With my new book, The Expert Authority Effect Publishing Method, I take you through my process step by step. Visit eapublishingmethodbook.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit-generating business book in 8 weeks. Visit eapublishingmethodbook.com to get started now. Once again, that's eapublishingmethodbook.com. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I would love to know what you enjoyed most from it. If you haven't done so already, I invite you to connect with me on my new LinkedIn. You can go to it directly at eainterviews.com/LinkedIn. Once again, that's eainterviews.com/LinkedIn. Lastly, check out the full eainterviews.com site for complete show notes, the full interview video experience, links to the resources we mentioned, and more. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you on the next one.